Now let's get your reaction to Man City's 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup semi-finals last weekend. Goals either side of half-time from Rico Lewis and Josko Gvardiol sealed City's place in a third successive FA Cup final where they'll face Crystal Palace on May the 17th. So City have got the chance to end the season on a high by potentially winning silverware. What are your thoughts, Stephen, on Man City's performance and what or who in particular stood out for you at Wembley?
Yeah, it was good enough. Obviously, there was a few surprises with the team. Rico Lewis coming into midfield was something that no one really predicted. Jack Grealish starting as well, both sort of out the blue, really, pun intended. Yeah, it's one of those things where it wasn't the ideal lineup. When you think about the quality on the bench, the likes of Jeremy Doku, who's been great recently, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Phil Foden, even Edison on the bench, Nico Gonzalez, who's played a lot recently. So there was a lot of changes to the team. But we're at the stage now where you sort of got to trust Guardiola. You've always had to do that, but in particular, right now, the team is actually flying. It doesn't feel that way, given the mood. It's still very I was cautious, I would say, around Manchester City, but we're one of the most informed teams in the country right now. So maybe in November, I would have been nervous about this lineup because I felt like we would have almost certainly been beaten with this lineup back then. But right now, we're flying and we're confident. And you saw City come out. And in the first half in particular, I thought City were really, really, really impressive. They controlled that game. I don't think Forest had a shot in anger in that first half at all. And City, even though they weren't at the creative best, this was Guardiola down to a T. It was 1,000 million passes, keeping the ball, 75% possession in that first half, a number of shots. Of course, a beautifully worked goal, Rico Lewis justifying his inclusion. An excellent drill finish after a great, typical darting Kovacic run, who's in great form right now. And then we sort of saw the first half out look comfortable, really comfortable. Forest some way more in it in the second half, and a lot of people have talked about City getting a little bit lucky and so on because Forest did hit the post 3 times, which is mad. One or two of those should have gone in most certainly. But City still did have chances in that second half too, so it's not like it was entirely one-sided. And I think ultimately City was still good value for the win, for the control of the first half. Forest maybe should have had a goal or two, but I think City could have scored in that second half too. So I think City was still good value for their win. I know we scored in the second half, but one more maybe after Vardiel's chance. But yeah, I think City was still good value for the win in the end and just about deserved. Forest, of course, they did rally. They're going to semi-final, of the FA Cup. The City, once again, it wasn't their strongest side, but they held on pretty well, and we got to a third consecutive final. And given the season we've had, and to be honest, any season, you'll always take it because it's a prestigious trophy and another trip to Wembley for City fans to somehow pay for.
Yeah, and one of the standout performers for City against Forest was Mateo Kovacic. He was named man of the match. He's a player who's enjoying a strong run of form at the moment, and Guardiola described his recent run in the last 3 or 4 games as extraordinary. What have
Extraordinary
you
indeed.
made of Kovacic recently, and how important has he been for City in these last few games?
Yeah, Guardiola also talked about his composure. He said his composure has been extraordinary too, and I actually agree about that because I mean, when you think about Kovacic in the winter months, and this also applies to the whole team. To be fair to him, composure wasn't a word you'd use. It's a little bit too erratic, and right now, he's showing why he's such a successful footballer. I mean, there's a tendency to judge a player when they're at their sort of lowest ebb, and it's not really fair if the team's suffering that way. And we've all been guilty of doing that. But you have to remember where he's come from. Kovacic is a multiple Champions League winner. Not, of course, always a starter, but you don't get into the squad of Inter Milan and Real Madrid and Chelsea, be Chelsea Player of the Year, Manchester City from Guardiola trying to sign you, and do all this without being obviously a cracking footballer. And I think Kovacic right now is showing a maturity and a leadership and a composure. That City need. We do need that leadership. And he's at what? He's 30 years old now, so he's been around an awful lot. He's won everything there is, basically. And what I love about him is right now he's always had that incredible, drive forward, that electric pace when he just gets going. But he's marrying it now with actual goal contributions and assists, lots of goals recently as well. While also being much more diligent defensively. It's really working for him, this new system where Guardiola keeps 3 players back instead of just two in midfield. It allows everyone a little bit more security and comfort to do what they want on the ball, while also knowing they've got cover behind him. And Kovacic is a massive part of that. He's a very unique footballer in the way that he can just turn the game with his pace in the centre of the park, while also being very good at retaining possession. Yeah, he's a cracking footballer, and right now he's arguably our most informed player. Maybe if it's not him, it's his Croatian brother Josko Vardial. But those two, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, Kovacic, I think, dictated the game really well against Forest. I think a big reason why they were so dominant against Forest was because of Kovacic, just kept things ticking over, won the ball back on numerous occasions as well.
Yeah.
He assisted Rico Lewis for the opener after just a couple of minutes. It was just a really strong all-round performance from him. And do you think that, he's sort of beginning to almost cement his place in Guardiola's team and Guardiola's squad in particular ahead of next season? Because there has been some sort of tentative links of a possible exit as part of this big squad rebuild, but considering his recent performances, sort of
Yeah.
contributing a lot, both going forward and tracking back in midfield. Do you think City will be tempted to keep him for a little while longer?
Yeah, I think they'll keep him. I didn't really think he would leave, if I'm being honest. You've got De Bruyne going, and potentially, Bernardo's more likely to go, which I found wild given it's Guardiola and Bernardo Silva. But I think Kovacic has shown no signs of wanting to move on, and Bernardo, we all know he's asked for a long time and to move on. I think he fancies going closer to home, which I get. But I think Kovacic probably will stay around. I don't think you can strip out several players from the midfield and expect it to be functioning still. Gundogan will stay. De Bruyne is going. Yeah, I think Kovacic and Gundogan, they'll be the ones that stay. De Bruyne are obviously gone. Bernardo, maybe not. We'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I think Kovacic, he has his place in this squad. I mean, ultimately, he's not going to be on an absurd amount of money. A decent fee, don't get me wrong. But he's also can play as a six, plays an eight, has that experience. He's also sort of used to the squad role thing. He's not going to, kick up a fuss if he's playing every other game or rotating in and out. He's done that throughout his career, really, to an extent. He's obviously had periods of starters, but he's used to that rotation feel. And there's a consistency there and a reliability for Guardiola. Like he understands the system that Pep reverts to. When he needs a little bit of stability. And Kovacic, yeah, I would keep him personally, especially in this form. It'd be silly not to. And I think this form is more it's more reminiscent of the form last season alongside Rodri, particularly when he first signed for City a year and a half ago. He was in cracking form alongside Rodri. So I think we'll keep him because he offers something a little bit different in the centre midfield for City.